Hey everyone, it's Quickie Baby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I'm playing in the brand new Tier 8 French-wheeled light tank. It is the Lynx 6x6. Now, I unlocked this vehicle on Thursday. I played from Tier 6 up to Tier 8. I used free experience to unlock the modules on the vehicles, and then I got some kind of 5 times experience bundle to be able to at least play through the different tanks. And so I played the Tier 6 probably about like 10-15 times. I played the Tier 7 probably about like 20 times, and this was my third game in the Tier 8. Now, firstly, I want to give you my initial impressions on the Tier 6 and the Tier 7 if you're thinking about making your way up the tech tree. The Tier 6, you know, it's alright. The view range really hampers it. The gun is okay, but it's definitely not exceptional. The speed of the tank is nice, the fact that you can go backwards really quickly, but all in all, I was a bit disappointed with the Tier 6 if I'm honest with you. Tier 7, well, Tier 7 is interesting because I believe you get a bump up in view range, your camera rating is better, so you can kind of do a little bit more of an active scout role, and also the gun feels just so much better at Tier 7. However, again, I just didn't really feel the vehicle. One of the things about the Tier 6 is that it just doesn't quite go fast enough to be able to avoid shells on the enemy team. I think the Tier 6 is limited to about 60-65 kilometers an hour, with the Tier 7 limited to 70 kilometers an hour. And going around at 60, when you're in quite a large side profile on a vehicle like the French light tanks, you're just not fast enough to be able to avoid the shots. And so you can't really play that active scout role because you don't have the view range to be able to do so. And I found that you had to make very risky plays to even have a chance of having a good game. Now, the Tier 7, a bit fast, able to go at 70, a little bit of a less of a problem with regards to avoiding shells using the speed of the tank. But it was really until I got to the Lynx at Tier 8, and keep in mind that I've only played 3 games in this vehicle so far, that I truly realised what the speed is all about. Now, this vehicle is the first one along the line where you have access to being able to switch between the 2 speeds. You've got kind of a cruise mode, and then you've got a rapid travel mode. Inside cruise mode, I believe the vehicle is limited to 58 kilometers an hour forwards and backwards, and inside the rapid travel mode, which while it lowers your wheel turning angle, it increases your top speed and I believe your engine power by a little bit, which really allows you to go up to 80 kilometers an hour, which is absolutely awesome. And that means that finally you've got the speed to be able to avoid the shells. And I think this is the first tank along the line that you can really start to bomb it around and avoid the enemy's fire just through sheer mobility. The camera rating on the Lynx is also a little bit better than the Tier 6. Significantly better than the Tier 6 and a little bit better than the Tier 7. But unfortunately, even though you're at Tier 8, the view range hasn't gone up at all. And so unless you're on a matchup like this, where you're dealing with opponents that are 2 tiers lower than you, who usually have much lower view range, then you're really going to struggle to be able to even perform the active role in this vehicle. And so I'm still trying to think about what the best way is to play these French-wheeled light tanks. You can either play them as a long-range sniper with no hope of actually spotting your opponent, so you're going to have to just hope that your allies spot for you and assist. Just on that mode, while I interrupt that train of thought, I want to show you what these high explosive rounds on the back of this tank are like. Oh, look at that. This is actually the stock gun on this vehicle. I decided that I didn't want to waste the 40,000 free experience, and I thought that I'd just use some of my 5 times bonuses to be able to unlock it without having to convert the gold. I know it's a bit of a false economy. Hold on, you purchase those 5 times experience missions, but you're not willing to spend gold to be able to convert the experience. That's a whole nother story. But the 76mm on this vehicle, sorry, the 75mm on this vehicle, well, its alpha damage is 175 rather than 240, and its penetration is lower, and the high explosive penetration and alpha damage is significantly lower than the 90mm gun that you can use on this tank. Not to also mention that your damage per minute is worse, your traverse speed on the turret is worse. I still think that it's a perfectly usable gun. I have to admit, I'm hats off to Wargaming for this tech tree. I feel that they're playable, at least without free experience. And considering that the previous line that was in the game before this was the Polish tanks, yeah, I think that one, the Polish tech tree for me, was absolutely horrific to play without free experience. Alright, so we put a high explosive round into the back of the T-25-2, and now we're going to put one into the Lorraine 155-51, and our artillery looks like it does 384 damage, but not quite enough, and there's 6 extra damage for us to confirm our second kill of the game. Alright, so good stuff so far. Now that I've told you all about the Tier 6, I've told you about the Tier 7, I've told you what the Tier 8 is good for, and I want to really focus on what I'm thinking at the time while I was playing this game. Alright, so I'm thinking, is it worth stopping here right now? Is it actually worth keeping stationary? Because if you stop in these tanks, you usually lose your hit points. And exactly, those are the first hit points I've lost of this game. And I'm going to loop around this IS, and I figure out I need to get out of there because that Type 64 is going to isolate me. If the Type 64 hadn't been there, then I could have just done donuts around, or just rings around the IS on the enemy team, and we would have been able to avoid all damage and probably be able to shut him down. But the Type 64 assisting him means that he's going to easily be able to hit us while we're traversing the IS, so we had to get out of there. Now we've finished off the Type 58, we can turn our attention back to the IS. Now I'm going to stay below the ridgeline here, only popping up to try and get some spotting for our artillery. I'm thinking if I should go for him. He's fired, so I'm just going to go up and I'm going to have a little peek, and I'm going to work around the ridgeline. You see how I stay below the ridgeline here, so the IS doesn't come up and be able to take me on. I'm also a little worried about vehicles like the Type 64 around this corner, so I'm just going to go around spot, but seeing how he takes a big old hit from the Su-152 on my team, I'm going to finish him off. Okay, so I'm going to hug down in the ridgeline here. You see I'm always using ridgelines, and I'm going to turn around altogether because I expected the Type 64 or maybe the UDES on the enemy team to shoot me, and you've just got to try and make your movements erratic. Now that I know that I'm no longer spotted, I can be a little bit more aggressive, and I'm going to try and push up and try and get some view range from my team, because while we're 2 tanks ahead, and oh, that's some serious air. Luckily, with the 6 wheels on this vehicle, preventing us from taking any damage. Now we're going to be able to make our way up here to try and spot the Type 64 for our team. And I'm going to load a high explosive round here, because if it rolls high, well, I've got 260 alpha damage if on an average roll. If I roll plus 10 or maybe plus 15%, which is perfectly reasonable, about 1 in 3 times, we're going to kill that Type 64 in a single shot. If I was to fire the APCR on this vehicle, however, we might actually struggle to be... Well, we'd definitely kill him in 2 shots, but as I mentioned, the damage per minute on this vehicle is awful, and it's even worse when you're using the stock gun. Now, I am driving backwards here. One of the specialities of these French-wheeled light tanks is they're able to go backwards as fast as they can forwards. We put 1 round into the Type 64, but it doesn't quite roll high enough. Luckily, he misses us, and we're able to finish him off. Maybe he thought we were using the higher alpha damage gun there, and that he had more time to be able to shoot us. So I'm trying to just avoid some shells from the UDES. I'm going to wait till I'm no longer spotted, and now that I know that I'm no longer spotted, I'm going to whiz forwards as quickly as I can. You can see I enter the rapid travel mode. I was in cruise mode there fighting against the Type 64 so I could turn around the vehicle faster. And right now, the last thing that I want to do is get shot by the UDES. Because if I get shot by the UDES, oh, good, I didn't lose any hit points. It's going to be a 50-50 whether he kills me. He's got 390 alpha damage, and I've got 387 hit points. And you know what? I don't want a coin flip. I want to win this game securely. I don't want a coin flip in this battle. So I'm going to avoid the UDES's fire. I'm going to flank around. I'm going to make sure one of the light tanks isn't going for our artillery. And there's a 1375. He gets hit once by the P43, and I finish him off. The shell velocity on these standard rounds is actually, I think, like 1,300, which is absolutely awesome. One of the reasons why I felt perfectly comfortable to use the stock gun on this vehicle. Now, of course, if you do get yourself into a tier 9 or a tier 10 matchup, you're probably going to have to dab the 2 key a lot and upgrade your penetration to 220. Just imagine that I guess you're a T-71 dealing with tier 9 tanks, but I guess you're also going to have to deal with tier 10 tanks as well. It's definitely not great, but you know, it's the weaknesses of the light tanks, or the French-wheeled light tanks. Alright, so I'm thinking about loading heat right now, but... Okay, you know what, that will do. I thought I was going to have a tricky fight with a Jumbo Sherman with the 105 high explosive gun, and that thing could be able to rip me apart in a single shell. But the artillery dumps in a huge round, shutting down the tier 6 American medium tank for 470, and I'm very happy about this spotting. But I'm actually looking down and thinking, 1,174 spotting, that's so low. But that's because this tank has 310 meters base view range. One thing that is very nice is that I'm using vertical stabilizers, vents, and coated optics currently on this, but when you've got the upgraded gun, I recommend dropping vertical stabilizers to use a gun rammer as well. And you can see how nice the gun handling is of the vehicle. You literally don't really have to stop to shoot, which is one of the advantages of the French light tanks. Alright, now that we've dealt with the P43 in that position, we're going to just advance straight towards the UDES. I'm going to duck towards the left because I haven't been spotted yet. I'm thinking about ducking towards the right. Yeah, that's what I would do. So I can drive straight towards him because clearly he's situated up behind the peak of this rock. We're going to get up behind him, we're going to fire a heat round, and in retrospect, that was unnecessary. I should have loaded APCR. You know why? Because I was thinking he was the tier 8 Swedish premium tank destroyer, which has 30mm of all-round armor. And of course, with a 75mm gun, the APCR rounds are not going to be able to overmatch 30mm of armor, and he'd be able to bounce me all day. Heat rounds, on the other hand, penetrate up to 85 degrees of angled armor, which the UDES, or shall I say the Stridsvagn S1, can't really achieve unless it's angling its armor and not just pointing itself directly at you. And of course, if it's not pointing itself directly at you, it's not going to be shooting you. And so, long story short, if you need to fight a Stridsvagn S1, if your gun caliber is 91mm and higher, fire AP or APCR or heat, whatever. But if your gun is 90mm and less against the Stridsvagn S1, not the UDES that I just fought, then do not fire AP or APCR. You can only fire heat or just fire high explosive rounds or try and flank it. Anyway, that is the Lynx in the third game we played in this vehicle. Not a bad result, 2,500 damage for a tier 8 light tank and 1,600 spotting. Spotting a little on the low side, but 6 kills, not too bad. So we actually secured our ace in our third game here in the Lynx, although I have to admit that it was the second day that this vehicle was released, and so it's usually a lot easier to ace vehicles earlier on. Still, 1,364 base experience points is decent for any tier 8 tank. 6 kills, we didn't fire many premium rounds, in fact I think only one, so we make a decent profit with or without a premium account. And upon closer inspection we actually did nearly 2,100 spotting, which is unusual because the game only registered 1,600 during the battle. I guess maybe the artillery or the S1 hit something as we were just about to not see it. And so the Panhard AML Lynx 6x6, is it worth grinding to if you're not really enjoying the tier 6 and the tier 7? No, I don't think so. I have to admit that these mid-tier French-wheeled light tanks are very underwhelming. Maybe I was just playing bad on Thursday, but I was really trying hard, and I could barely get kind of like a 50 or 60% win ratio in these vehicles. Whereas, you know, in mid-tier tanks, I'll be probably trying to get more like 60 to 70% wins when I'm playing solo. Now, of course, that could be down to the fact that there's so many wheeled vehicles in the matchmaker right now, which is kind of screwing up their capacity to really dig in and carry the game. Or on the other hand, it could be down to the fact that our light tanks really meant to work if they don't have view range. Sure, you can give them crazy speed, but if enough people take a swing at you, it doesn't really matter if you're going at 80 kilometers an hour, your 920 hit points at tier 8 aren't really going to hold up. I can only imagine the tier 10 tank destroyers like the Jagdpanzer E100 and the Fe215B183 playing around at the moment, who are loving one-shotting these tanks pretty much all the time. Either way, I'm going to continue my journey up the tech tree with Front Lines coming out tomorrow. I'll be trying out the Lynx there, make a huge amount of experience hopefully from the Front Lines game mode, and stay tuned to the channel as I continue up to tier 9 and tier 10 and let you know if they're worth it. Anyway, ladies and gents, that's it for today. I hope this video was useful, or maybe you just enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up, but if you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And if you're watching this video as it's released on Sunday, it's time for another World of Tanks tech tree showcase on twitch.tv/QuickieBaby. And this week, 600 of you voted and 40 want to see me play the heavily armored German medium tank that maybe I might be a little bit famous for once calling weak. Is it going to get its revenge on me tonight? It is the E50 Aus M. And so come along right now as I start at tier 1 and work my way up towards the heavily armored German medium tank so you can see if it's a line that's maybe interesting to you, or alternatively, if you already have the tanks, pick up a few tips or tricks along the way. Or maybe there's just a few absolute sadistic people out there who want to see me play the E50M for a few rounds. Either way, I'm really looking forward to seeing as many of you as possible right now on twitch.tv/QuickieBaby. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I won't bash my microphone next time.